Thank you very much. Restarting the meeting after a short break. And we're going on to cabinet meeting agenda item 11, which I believe is being introduced by Councillor Coleman. Yeah. And if this that in full. It is the joint South Oxfordshire and Vale of White Horse waste and street clean vehicle procurement strategy. So, Councillor Coleman, help me to you.
Thank you, Chair. Gives me great pleasure to be able to introduce this report to you up front, because I don't always get the opportunity to ask questions or make observations when the Chair's ignoring my short arms. So perhaps I could thank the officers for all the work that they've done on this. There's a lot of background work that we as members don't always see, but I would like to thank them. And also could I thank the Joint Scrutiny Committee for their review of this document and their input, which I'm happy to say we've been able to include all of theirs or comments, and which does make it a better product. And at some point, I think, Steve, you'll go through the points that they raised.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Steve. So this report is to inform the Cabinet of the current issues facing the councils, so this is both South and Vale, in modernising and sustaining the waste and street cleansing operational fleet, and to outline the process that officers will use for the future procurement of replacement vehicles. So the purpose of the report isn't to focus on the specific number of vehicle types, alternative fuels or technology our councils will purchase in the future, but to agree the mechanism by which officers will assess the market and for us to be able to select the best vehicle able to complete the intended job, which are within the available budget and which have the lowest carbon emissions. The indicative timeline shown in the report is there to illustrate the forward planning process, which will take place prior to any purchase. But should an opportunity present itself, such as bringing forward capital expenditure for the replacement of vehicles to save revenue costs, buying second-hand or leasing vehicles, then our officers will consider this and present as part of the business case process. So the business case process is ongoing. That was one of the points that Joint Scrutiny asked us to clarify. Officers regularly seek the experience of other local authorities in their migration away from carbon fuels. However, to inform our knowledge base further, officers have submitted a proposal for the Ministry of Transport funding to carry out an initial trial of around 12 weeks of an electric refuse collection vehicle in participation with an external logistics optimization software company and a electric refuse collection vehicle manufacturer. Very, very excited about this. This is the leading edge. There is no comparable software currently available on the market, and given the national challenge of how to decarbonise rural waste collection fleets, we believe that the proposal has a strong chance of success, but has not yet been confirmed. The project is likely to commence in June, with the operational trial beginning in the autumn. It aims to develop a software tool to optimise waste collection routes for electric vehicles by considering factors such as journey lengths, cumulative load weights, geographical factors such as hills, main roads, urban environments, number of bins able to be emptied on each day, all of which will put us in the forefront of developing strategies for the use of electric refuse collection vehicles. So I welcome Cabinet colleagues reviewing the report and process, and officers are available online to ask any questions. That's Scott Williams. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Yes, I think we've gone quite a way in developing the strategy, and very, very much welcomed. Any comments or questions? Oh, sorry. Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, the Joint Scrutiny Committee met on 25th of March, considered the report from the officers on this subject and noted the report and put forward the following comments. First one, the committee asked for confirmation that the council's standard approach to business cases would be used. Committee asked that paragraphs 15 and 16 to 20 were reviewed to avoid contradiction of procurement factors. And the committee asked Cabinet to think about maintenance of vehicles during procurement. And all of these have been taken into account in the report for you today. as confirmed by Councillor Coleman.
Any, Councillor Crawford?
I thought this was an excellent report, and I think we should thank the officers for it. Equally excited about the 12-week trial.
Yeah,
could be really interesting. I'm always tempted to volunteer to be a member of the crew. Actually, almost.
I think they are recruited.
I just many years ago I did actually go out with the waste crew 20 odd years ago. It is an eye.
I'm still so
I'd recommend it.
yeah, I'm waiting on them telling me when I can go, but I have to apparently an induction course.
Yes, yeah. The one question I did have is that one of the limitations of electric vehicles is clearly the rural nature of our district. It doesn't say it specifically here, but officers may well have considered it, or if it does say, I haven't found it. Is that yes, although we are rural, it wouldn't be beyond the wit of man, presumably, to design some routes that are close to the depot. And so, for example, if the depot is close to Didcot or Abingdon or whatever, the route for that vehicle would actually be, although we're a rural district, it would be more urban in its type. I'm wondering, therefore, that questioning whether or not we considered that factor when looking at a mix of vehicles that are suitable for what is predominantly a rural district, but not entirely. You see what I mean?
I'll let Scott amplify and hopefully confirm what I'm about to say. But I did say that we engage with other local authorities, and it's the Cambridge group who have been using electric refuse collection vehicles, but predominantly for where they've got high density population. So it almost exactly what you just said. So my view is that as the benefit of this strategy and the process that we're doing here is we don't have to commit to going to a particular type of vehicle now for the next 15 to 20 years. We can review it as technology changes, and the sort of thing that you just said will be one of the factors that we can consider as to, we have a legal requirement to collect refuse. That has to be our highest priority. But you're right. So we already have an electric, or we will be receiving an electric food collection vehicle. So yes, the answer is yes. But hopefully Scott will be able to give a little bit more clarity and tell me I wasn't lying.
You certainly weren't lying, Councillor Coleman. Yeah, that is the case. It's about using the information that we've got available, what the technological advancements have been, to understand whether or not an electric vehicle would be usable in the rural environment such as ours. Picking up on the Cambridge trial, that they're used in very urban environments, and they're going to be picking up between 1,000 and 1,200 bins a day. So it's that many properties a day that are going to be serviced. So whilst the reins can be written in such a way that you keep it in the urban areas over a 2-week cycle, because that's the residual waste or recycling cycle, you will soon run out of properties. So it needs to be considered, but we would look at routing effectively to maximise the use.
Thank you. I was daydreaming about that, believe it or not, the other day, and it was sort of how, obviously I'm no expert, but I was thinking there must be ways of sort of maximising it, but obviously understanding the limitations.
Can I ask Scott a question? Just yeah. Scott, just remind me, because I know we're engaged with all of the places doing it, but there isn't a direct comparison because the electric trucks, due to the weight of the batteries, carry significantly less tonnage anyway, don't they? So it's not a lot at the moment. This technology is not a one-for-one comparator.
It's not, Mark. So it's around a 10-ton payload for the electric vehicles. Diesel combustion have a higher payload, so you're able to get more waste on. And the other thing just to consider is that when the vehicle is off the road, every 6 weeks the vehicle's off the road to have a check. It has an annual service, an annual MOT. You then need a spare vehicle to be able to collect that waste. So it's just something else to draw your attention to.
Thank you. Lots and lots of things to consider. but it's really exciting that we are I think the cutting edge. Yeah, and I think we all appreciate that.
And using, you know, information / knowledge as currency by, if we are successful in getting this trial, we will have some information that we can share with other authorities, which then mean that they are more likely to share their experience with us. So, you know, this is, you know, we not only are we considering our own requirements, but we're being informed by the wider use, you know, which is a good place to be in.
Thank you. Does anybody have any further comments or questions?
Thank you, Chair. I particularly liked with this paper the fact that we're actually agreeing the process by which we agree this, so that it makes that whole kind of debate towards the end of the thing, when we get to the point where we're ready to put the options forward. We know how we're going to be judging these, and we've already agreed that process. And I think that's really valuable in being able to just make decisions really easily and cleanly when it comes to something that can be quite potentially contentious. And it's just really a good thing to do at this stage. And I appreciate the officers thinking insofar as getting this hurdle out of the way, so we know exactly how we're going to approach this decision. So I think it's a really good piece of work.
Thank you. So, only one recommendation. So, it is recommended that Cabinet note the contents of the report on why the council needs to be procuring new waste vehicles and the factors which influence the future carbon footprint of the fleet and the process that officers will use for the future procurement of waste and street cleansing vehicles. Are we all happy to note the contents of this report?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to the housing delivery strategy update, and this is the councillor call.
Yes.
Thank you. Everybody has to have it at least one meeting where they have loads.
You're allowed today, aren't you?
Okay, so yes, back in late 2022, this council brought forward its housing delivery strategy, first of its kind for the council, and indicated the positive direction we wish to take regarding the provision of affordable and suitable housing, both directly and indirectly across the district. This strategy recognised that everyone needs a home and that the availability, affordability, location and quality of housing have a major impact on the lives and well-being of our residents. So that particular strategy laid out 4 key objectives, which were providing homes to meet current and future local need, delivering housing that is truly affordable, valuing and supporting council and community-led housing initiatives, and planning for well-designed net zero carbon housing. So when it comes to the end life of this strategy document, we considered the potential for producing a whole new strategy, doing a whole new needs analysis and various different other research activities. But given the timeframes where we are in so far as the national picture, in so far that we have a general election coming along this year, we've had various different changes to our internal arrangements, such as we have now become a direct landlord and we've purchased our own homes. So we are kind of in a different position from that point. We've also got various different issues that are also in play right now, which include the issue of a death of a 2-year-old child in Rochdale from a condition related to damp and mould in property. So this highlights the poor conditions of some rented properties. And so we need to focus more on social and affordable housing in that sense. And also the current cost of living crisis, which has continued, the sharp rise in interest rates and making it much more expensive to buy and own a home. Also had an impact for the developers and registered providers of affordable housing in their ability to borrow to enable them to buy and build housing. So based on the various challenges outlined, we want to promote the delivery of more affordable housing, but also taking into account the new areas of work. So essentially what we've decided to do in this circumstance is develop an action plan to take us past the point of the next election. So we have a much clearer understanding of what the housing priorities will be from the successful party who gets in government from there. And based on that, then we have two appendices in front of you, one of which is to take the original action plan and give you a progress update about what we've delivered. And Appendix 2 outlines the new action plan, which will be delivered by officers across council and which aligns with the draft joint local plan as it stands and further develops our landlord offer and the use of our Section 106 funds to support more affordable housing schemes. Obviously, there's plenty more behind this, but essentially the report shows how far we have come, how much work we will do over the next year, and shows how we will both directly and with a range of different partners deliver a vital agenda for those who live in the Vale.
Thank you. As you say, it's an area that's got a huge, obviously a huge pressure, but it's a hugely changing, adaptable, moving picture that we have to adapt to, I should say. And I think we are doing a very good job as a council of sort of becoming a bigger player in this and taking our actions on board. So I do appreciate all the work that's been done in this field, particularly becoming our own properties, and that's a huge achievement. There are no recommendations on this one. I remember that. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
I'm just trying to prove I can stretch my arm.
Councillor Coleman.
So I welcome this update, and I want to emphasise two areas which are the latter one is very parochial to me, but the first one is I'm very pleased to see in paragraph 7 where we have successfully increased the staff resourcing that's gone behind this. Very often when we introduce things or we policy areas develop, we kind of have to take it within our own hide. But I think it's great that here we see that the staff resourcing has been increased because the officers are working at near enough maximum capacity most of the time. And if we don't do this sort of thing, then the whole project will fail, which then means that we are letting down our residents. So first thing is very many thanks and congratulations for that. The second one, which is the correct one, is, and you'll please forgive me, as the Armed Forces champion, again, I would like to recognise the work that we're doing through the Service Families Accommodation and also the local authority housing fund, specifically with relocation for the Afghan refugees, and also, of course, I know it's for the Ukrainians as well. Certainly from my background with working with the Afghans, they put themselves at risk for us, whether they were an interpreter or a locally employed contractor. And then whilst we scurried back to our forward operating base in somewhat relative safety, they remained in their own communities. And so it's only right that we do what we can. And I have to congratulate the officers particularly, but the Vale Council, because it's one of the forerunners in terms of its success in developing this on behalf of the central government. So thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to echo a lot of Councillor Coleman's comments there. This is a clear case of evidence of us putting in our money where our mouths are. The work that I've been doing over the last 9 months on a local plan and corporate plan shows how important
the homes people need are to our residents and to our members. And this is a clear sign that actually we're not taking our eye from the ball. We are pushing forward so hard on this. Hats off to the officer team. They've worked so hard progressing this. And again, I play a huge tribute to it. Those working on this operationally, but also those in planning policy, coming up with a new joint local plan that will actually deliver some genuinely affordable housing and work on making it a place that will provide homes for people. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Crawford.
Thanks, Billy. So, as the councils across the country, one of the biggest pressures that those that are responsible for housing have is the cost of temporary accommodation. Obviously, every council is different, and some have greater pressures than others. We have 2 temporary hostels, and at the moment, I'm told that that is sufficient. But I really just wanted to go on record to say that if things change, as you know, were it the case that more people become homeless in the Vale, these officers don't be backward in coming forward if the best solution is to find some accommodation for them locally, rather than packing people off to bed and breakfast in the Cowley Road or whatever. You know, we obviously have to balance the financial position against the social position, but quite often the best solution is or the solution is best for both us and them, given the very high costs of breakfast costs, accommodation that we might be able to provide ourselves. I just want to go on record to say that.
Thank you. Yeah, and there are so many pressures. As Councillor Cole said, the cost of living crisis, and associated with like poor accommodation. And I think just looking at over the last few cabinet meetings, we have sort of started to address these things with empty properties and various other things. So we are really making action, and I do appreciate that. Did anybody have any further comments?
I'd just like to second what Councillor Crawford said as well, but also add that I completely, I really love this report, and I think it's really progressive again of us, and forward thinking and forward planning, for our residents, and again, you know, just saying, yes, we want to provide everybody with a home, but actually a quality place to live that makes them happy and not stressed and worried as well. So I think that's really good to see.
Thank you. That's right. There was no further ado. We should be kind enough to read out the recommendations if we need to, or
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Chair. So page 226 of the agenda, the 3 recommendations. Firstly, that Cabinet notes the changes in the National Housing Guidelines or legislation since the Housing Delivery Strategy and Action Plan was adopted in 2022, and the associated impact that this has on the Housing Delivery Strategy. B, that Cabinet notes the latest progress against the Action Plan, as well as the significant efforts made in the leasing and purchasing of property under the Service Family Accommodation and Local Authority Housing Fund schemes. C, that Cabinet adopts the proposed new Housing Delivery Strategy Action Plan for 2024-25. Thank you, Chair.
thank you. Also, having taken those into consideration, is everybody happy to agree to those recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. I was just going to pause for a second. Do we have to extend the meeting at all? Does the break that we have count towards the?
How long did it take? So you took 10 minutes. 10 minutes, was it?
You took 10 minutes. Yes, so we're getting there. So do you want to extend the meeting now, please?
We may as well just in case, unless
Yeah.
I think
If
because this is going to be probably the biggest of the 2 items. We all agree to extend the meeting should we need it.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, is that all I need?
Yeah,
Get
thank
you.
Chair, before we move on to the next item, I should declare that I have a lodger in my house at the moment temporarily. Does that make me a landlord for the purposes of Bennett 13?
Paul or Vivian, does having a lodger in your house make you a landlord?
Well, if they are paying rent
Paul's nodding.
as opposed to staying with you as a member of the family or a friend, then yes. And therefore, the housing enforcement policy does affect any member.
Andy's off at a run.
Did you top up my parking?
Helen, are you in this situation where you have to declare interest? But just for the record, Councillor Cole and Councillor Crawford have left the room, declaring an interest as landlords of properties. Is anybody else in that situation? Helen, Diana, are you in that situation? I know you can't.
The key thing is the rent, isn't it? The rent element.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
Yes.
no.
Yeah. Is it?
If you'd ever been to our house, you'd know how small it was.
Okay, so yes, we're down to the bare minimum. Oh, we're still quorum, so that's good.
Yeah.
We hadn't taken that into consideration. It's just kind of.
I
We're not last night, you had.
Last night we had declarations that took me by surprise.
Okay, so can, if everybody's content, we can now introduce the housing enforcement policy paper, and Councillor Pickles is here to introduce it.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As we discussed in the previous agenda item, this council is committed to improving the availability and condition of affordable housing. And one of the areas that is included in our housing delivery strategy is our approach to the private rental sector. With approximately 15% of all households in private rent, this is a vital issue for a large number of people. And with a recent national focus on damp and mould in rental properties, the proposed changes under the Renters Reform Bill, this council needs to ensure it has all the pieces in place to support a safe and secure private rental sector. This new housing enforcement policy is one of those pieces and sets out the council's approach to ensuring that acceptable housing standards in the privately rented homes are clearly stated. The council has a strong track record of engaging positively with private landlords, the large majority of whom provide a good quality service to their tenants. However, where necessary, we must take robust action against rogue landlords, and this policy ensures that we can do that in a transparent manner. We hope that our approach of positive engagement will mean that such action will only be pursued where necessary and where landlords are unwilling to cooperate in resolving problems for their tenants in an appropriate and timely manner. The policy, with clear regard for the relevant national legislation, sets out in detail the standards we expect to see achieved and the civil penalties and other penalty charges that we may impose for breach of those standards. It also outlines a standards and licensing scheme that we set for houses of multiple occupation, we all know as HMOs. Subject to the adoption of this policy, all landlords and tenants in the district are urged to read this policy, which will be made available on our website in due course and will be promoted through our usual media. Our officers will signpost this through their normal dealings with landlords and tenants. So just to sum up really, the Vale of Whitehorse already has a strong track record of engaging positively with landlords and will continue to support the large majority who are offering a good quality service. And this policy supports and builds upon that, upon this work already being done by the private sector housing team. It provides guidance for officers, landlords and letting agencies and tenants on the approach by the council to ensure acceptable standards, and enforcement of action will only normally be pursued as a last resort. So I just wanted to respond to Councillor Foxall's comments earlier. The policy does include socially rented houses as well. And as stated in paragraph 3 of the introduction, which is on page 262 of the reports pack, it covers housing enforcement in all residential dwellings, including privately rented, socially rented, owner-occupied properties and housing in multiple occupation, and explains the circumstances where enforcement action will be pursued. We've got Phil and Paul on the line, and I would suggest, Chair, that they could give a bit more clarification on this. Yeah, apart from that, I recommend that you support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pickhills. If I may, I will just go to Phil and or Paul for further clarification on Councillor Foxall's question and comments earlier. There he is. Hello, Paul.
Hello. Yeah, thank you. There is obviously a different regime between how social housing and RPs are regulated than through private sector landlords, which is why things are a bit different. But as Councillor Pickles has said, when it comes to regulating on things like standards, the policy is clear that it applies across all different forms of housing. Obviously, there are some elements of the policy which have specifically focused on the private rented sector, such as the work on licensing, HMO licensing. But when it comes to standards, it does apply across the board.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, that's good to know. And well, reassuring, but not surprising, because we do understand you work comprehensively and appreciate you take everything into account. As Councillor Cole was saying on the last item, we've heard in the news that the standards of housing can be incredibly poor, and in that case, very sad case, that little boy died because of damp and mould, and as Councillor Edwards was saying also on the last item, it's about assuring our residents that can have houses that they enjoy living in and feel happy and safe to live in. So appreciate the work you are doing into this. Any comments or questions? Councillor Coleman?
So again, probably more of an observation, but I think I take great comfort in the way that this policy is written to say we try and resolve things informally, and then there's a level of, in my background we call escalation, but escalation which eventually might require some legal action to be taken. And I think I'm interpreting this correctly, that then in paragraph 18, where we say by not adopting the policy, because we have to have a policy in place if we were to wish to take those highest forms of rectification. If we don't approve this policy, then, for example, we might not be able to take somebody to court if it got to that extreme. So if we want to have the full armory at our availability, then if I read this correctly, we've got no option other than to vote in a policy. Is that a true an accurate assessment? Yeah, thank you. I can see you nodding. That's great. Thank you very much.
I think it's maybe it's too early to know, but I'm kind of keen to know what the viewpoint of letting agencies may be on this policy, but it's probably too early because they won't have seen it. But I guess would any letting agent know that this policy is coming into play, and would they be positive towards it? I guess. So as in setting a nice standard as a letting agent for rental properties.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, Phil might want to come in. this sort of policy is seen in many areas. So many
Yeah.
councils would have a similar sort of policy. This would not be unknown to letting agents. But Phil, have you got any comments on that?
Yeah, just to say this doesn't sort of change any legislative base. That the legislation remains the same. What it does do is it brings it together into one document, makes it clear and transparent. So although it's an enforcement policy and needed and quite rightly, it should actually help landlords and agents by seeing very clearly how our officers deal with situations. Yeah. And also they can access the information to see exactly what we expect of them and indeed what they can expect of our officers.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further comments? None that I can see. So try and get the recommendations. And recommendations it is recommended that Cabinet A approve the adoption of the housing enforcement policy, and B, subject to approval of the policy, to delegate authority to the head of housing and environment to make minor amendments to the policy in the future. Is everybody present happy to agree with those recommendations?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, Paul, and thanks, Phil.
Yeah, I'm going to have to. I was kind of in total.
That's right.
I'm going to have to accept my parking.
Yeah.
I'd hate to be in front of the car park portfolio holder.
You could just get a waitress, couldn't you?
Oh, anyway, once I put it to the end.
We put it on the screen, really.
I'll be too.
We were trying to encourage you to speak longer, but they just wouldn't.
Thanks to everybody back in the room. Councillor Commons just had to leave for a few minutes, but I'm sure he will return. And we are going on to item number 14, so the budget monitoring report from April 23 to 20. Amazing. Budget monitoring report April 2023 to December 2023. Councillor Crawford, I believe you are introducing this.
I am, and hopefully this will be quite quick.
You're phenomenal.
So the report reviews the council's revenue and capital expenditure performance against the budget for 23-24 to the end of month 9, which is December. And Cabinet will recall that the budget for 23-24 was agreed at council on the 15th of February last year. And the revenue budget, as outlined in paragraph 4 of this report, was set at 17.3 million. And this has increased to 18.8 million, the increase affecting carry forwards of unspent one-off project budgets from 22-23 and grant funded budgets. In terms of revenue, as explained in paragraph 5 of the report, table 1, the forecast is for an overspend of just over £1 million. There are, however, as identified in paragraph 6, just over an additional £800,000 of projected carry forwards of one-off budgets, leaving an overall forecast overspend of 1.8 million. However, as identified in paragraph 6, interest income is likely to exceed budget by over 2 million, as interest rates are expected to remain higher for longer, and this additional income will more than offset increased expenditure. On capital, the programme has been subject to the budget challenge process. At the end of December, that review was still in progress, but based on latest information at the time, the programme for the year was 16.5 million. Against that, latest estimates of 5.7 million have been spent by the end of December. I recommend that Cabinet notes the report. It's probably also worth saying, of course, that although this report is for December the 31st, we've now actually passed that financial year end. It takes quite a long time for all the balances to be put so that we can actually know what the situation is at the end of the financial year on 31st of March. But I have heard nothing yet that suggests that there's going to be any significant changes in the forecast that were made in this report, the year end actuals. Possibly also worth pointing out that although the increase in treasury income as a result of high interest rates is a good thing, it is the case, I think, that those interest rates will go down in time, but some of the additional revenue expenditure items won't. So for those, for example, the increases that will perhaps say staff costs, those aren't going to go down as interest rates go down, of course. So although this is a relatively rosy picture for this year, I think it comes with a bit of caution about the future. Happy to take any question. I think Simon is on the call.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Crawford. I think generally speaking, when papers like this come up, I just want to ask, are you happy? If you're happy, then I'm usually happy. But you seem content.
Yes, this is my content face.
Oh, okay.
I like sort of smile.
Mark might have a different view. This is my content.
So good sausage painful face. Also slightly perturbed face.
Thank you, Neil.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? Was that you?
I'm happy to say that I'm pleased to see the report. I think it's another example of our generally good management. And when I say our, I mean primarily our officers. Yeah, good management of the Bell's resources and the fact that it's as ever readable as well as full of detailed testament to that.
Yeah, very grateful to Simon Hewings and his kind of team, and all the work they do. And Councillor Forsham well knows that as he's developing the new corporate plan, this is one of the key themes in making sure that we are looking continually at our finances and managing them responsibly.
Very much so. It's been something that has raised one or two eyebrows that there was no longer a theme of building stable finances, but we realised at an early stage of developing a new corporate plan that actually it's woven into every single thing we do. Being responsible with our finances, it's not just a given, it's part of the DNA of the council now. It's clearly part of what we do. We assess everything on the basis of that. We don't take a punt and hope it's going to work out all right. We are laser focused on making sure that the finances are stable and stable in the long term. I remember starting in as a new council in 2019 to be told, you do realise we're going to run out of money in less than the end of the first term of the council. So we're determined that our plans, they may be ambitious, but they're not going to be at risk of sacrificing stable finances. And much as I don't want to embarrass him, I want to pay tribute to my colleague Councillor Crawford, whose grasp of our financial systems and our budgets is second to none, and always willing to answer complex questions and make them understandable to mere mortals that aren't actually.
And this is my embarrassed face.
So thank you, Richard. And thank you to the finance team.
Yeah, thank you. Does anybody have any further comments? Are we happy with noting the paper? Yes, Cabinet is recommended to note the contents of the report. Are we all happy to do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if we are, that's the end of the formal meeting. But I just also wanted to thank you everyone for coming and attending today, and thank you officers in the room and online. But most importantly, to again just say thank you, Steve, for everything you've done at the close of the meeting. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome, and thank you, Cabinet, for having me. It's been fun, and just looking at today's agenda, what brilliant stuff this council does. Proud to work for the council.
Thank you, and yeah.
We might invite you back from time to time to talk about finances.
Have been a very, very valued officer, and yeah, really appreciate everything you've done. Thank you. I just want to close the meeting there.